How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, an animated visual book summary by Alexander Sandalis. Part 3. How to Win People to Your Way of Thinking. Chapter 1. You Can't Win an Argument. Dale Carnegie was attending a banquet in honor of Sir Ross Smith, and he was sitting next to a gentleman who told him a story that hinged on the quotation, "There's a divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will." And he mentioned the quote was from the Bible, but he was wrong. And Dale knew that. He knew it positively, and Dale believed there couldn't be a slightest doubt about it. And so, to get a feeling of importance and to display his superiority, he appointed himself the unsolicited and unwelcome committee of the one to correct this gentleman. He stuck to his guns. What? From Shakespeare? Impossible. Absurd. That quotation was from the Bible. And he knew it. An old friend of Dale, who had devoted years to study Shakespeare, asked this gentleman, because Dale thought it was from Shakespeare. But he said, "Dale, you are wrong. The gentleman is right. It is from the Bible." And on their way home, he asked this gentleman, his friend, "You knew that quotation was from Shakespeare?" He replied, "Yes, of course. Hamlet. But we were guests at a festive occasion. Why prove to a man he is wrong? Is that going to make him like you? Why not let him save face? He didn't ask you for your opinion. He didn't want it. Why argue with him? Always avoid the acute angle." The man who said that taught me a lesson I'll never forget. I not only had made the storyteller uncomfortable, but had put my friend in an embarrassing situation. How much better it would have been had I not become argumentative. Now I can relate to this. I think many people can. I have a dogmatic persona about me. I know who I am, I know my values, I know my opinions, and I'm very sure of them. I only hold values I am very sure of. So I can get into a lot of disagreements, conflicts, and arguments with people close to me because of the knowledge, the mass amount of knowledge I've absorbed and tested that comes from my belief in myself. But what I'm about to quote from Dale reverses every argument I've ever had. It makes everyone insignificant, because Dale had taught a debating and argumentation course in New York. He was actually planning to write a book on the subject, and as a result of all the thousands of arguments he had seen, he said, "I have come to the conclusion that there is only one way under high heaven to get the best of an argument, and that is to avoid it. Avoid it as you would avoid rattlesnakes and earthquakes. 9 times out of 10, an argument ends with each of the contestants more firmly convinced than ever that he is absolutely right." You can't win an argument. You can't, because if you lose it, you lose it, and if you win it, you lose it. Why? Well, suppose you try and throw for the other man and shoot his argument full of holes and prove that he's wrong. Then what? You will feel fine, but what about him? You have made him feel inferior. You have hurt his pride. He will resent your triumph, and a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. People don't like their ego challenged. People don't like their opinions challenged. People don't like to be made felt inferior. So it's the idea of having these meaningless arguments, because that's what it creates 9 times out of 10. It's learning how to have a disagreement instead of an argument, learning how to have a conversation. Just a more tactical way to convey your opinion and to convey a subject. If you argue and rankle and contradict, you may achieve a victory sometimes, but it will be an empty victory, because you will never get your opponent's goodwill. So which would you rather have? An academic theoretical victory or a person's goodwill? Because you can seldom have both. Buddha said, "Hatred is never ended by hatred, but by love. And a misunderstanding is never ended by an argument, but by tact, diplomacy, conciliation, and a sympathetic desire to see the other person's viewpoint." Carnegie lists 8 rules, if you will, or 8 laws to follow before a disagreement or upon a disagreement or argument. 1. Distrust your first instinctive impression. Our first natural reaction in a disagreeable situation is to be defensive. Be careful. Keep calm and watch out for your first reaction. It may be your worst, not your best. 2. Control your temper. Remember, you can measure the size of a person by what makes him or her angry. 3. Listen first. Give your opponents a chance to talk. Let them finish. Do not resist, defend, or debate. This only raises barriers. Try to build bridges of understanding. Don't build higher bridges of misunderstanding. 4. Look for areas of agreement. When you have heard your opponents out, dwell first on the points and areas on which you agree. 5. Be honest. Look for areas where you can admit error and say so. Apologize for your mistakes. It will help disarm your opponents and reduce defensiveness. 6. Promise to think over your opponent's ideas, study them carefully, and mean it. Your opponents may be right. It is a lot easier at this stage to agree to think about their points than to move rapidly ahead and find yourself in a position where your opponents can say, "We tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen." 7. Thank your opponent sincerely for their interest. Anyone who takes the time to disagree with you is interested in the same things you are. Think of them as people who really want to help you, and you may turn your opponents into friends. 8. Postpone action to give both sides time to think through the problem. By suggesting a new meeting be held later in the day or the next week, when all the facts may be brought to bear, in preparation, ask yourself some of these following questions. Could my opponent be right? Partly right. Is there truth or merit in their position or argument? Is my reaction one that will relieve the problem? Or will it just relieve frustration? Will I win or lose? What price will I have to pay if I win? If I am quiet about it, will the disagreement blow over? And lastly, is this difficult situation an opportunity for me? Please watch that again. Just go back on those 8 points, because I think that's the most practical thing to take from this. To first understand that arguing is futile the majority of the time, and 2, going through step by step before you get into an argument, looking at these, committing them to memory, so you can avoid having people resent you from an argument, to avoid people hating you from an argument, even in the smallest things like a YouTube comment, a text message, Facebook comment. Before you lose your shit and write 1,000-word essay, just go through this. Opera tenor Jean Pièce was married nearly 50 years. My wife and I made a pact a long time ago, and we've kept to it no matter how angry we've grown with each other. When one yells, the other one should listen, because when 2 people yell, there is no communication, just noise and bad vibrations. If you happen to be married, do you do that? Let me know. Write it down in the comment. Do you do that, or do you not do that? Why? What do you do in an argumentative situation? I'm genuinely curious to see what married people who are listening to this do. Principle 1. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. If you've made it this far through the video to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you know. It's really important to me that you follow me on social media, but only if you actually intend on watching and or reading the content I produce. Do not subscribe just because you think I'm okay. Hold yourself to high standards to only learn from those you think you can attain great value from.